Forget those cheesy self-help gurus telling you to manifest your best life by visualizing a yacht you can't afford. Let's talk about something real. The subtle art of detecting when someone secretly wants to throw you off that imaginary yacht. Because, let's be honest, sometimes the people closest to us are the ones sharpening the metaphorical knives. And who better to guide us through this delightful minefield than the granddaddy of the unconscious, Carl Jung. Now, before you picture Jung as some dusty old dude with a beard, think of him as the original rebel psychologist. He wasn't about surface-level fixes. He dove deep into the murky waters of the human psyche, the place where our true selves and everyone else's hidden agendas reside. He understood that what people say and what they really feel are often light years apart. And that's where this video comes in. We're going to explore the Jungian landscape of hidden hostility, those subtle signs that someone close to you might be harboring some less-than-friendly feelings. The thing about real hatred, the kind Jung would be fascinated by, isn't the dramatic screaming matches. It's the subtle stuff. "Oh, I was just kidding," they'll say, but your gut knows better. This is where things get really interesting. Jung was all about the shadow self, the dark, repressed parts of our personality. Misleading advice, accidental miscommunications, subtle mistakes that always seem to hinder your progress. It's like they're building you a sandcastle then kicking it over when you're not looking. The silent competition. The Jungian concept of the inferiority complex comes into play here. They need to feel superior to feel good about themselves, and your success is a threat to their fragile ego. Ever had someone say, "Congratulations," like they just swallowed a lemon? That lack of genuine enthusiasm, the forced smile. True support is energizing, uplifting. Superficial support is, well, superficial. It lacks the emotional depth, the anima or animus, that Jung considered so vital. This is a classic Jungian power play. "I'm just worried about you," they'll say while subtly manipulating your choices. Jung understood the shadow side of love, how it can morph into control and possessiveness. The gossip. The whispers. The subtle undermining of your reputation. Jung would see this as an attempt to diminish your persona, the social mask we present to the world. They're trying to tear down your carefully constructed image, to expose what they perceive as your flaws. Envy. Resentment. Those are powerful shadow emotions. And they often manifest as annoyance, or attempts to downplay your achievements. Jung would remind us that true friends celebrate each other's victories, even if they secretly wish they had a bit of that success themselves. This is where Jung's concept of the unconscious truly shines. The subtle gestures, the micro-expressions, the involuntary attitudes. Our bodies often betray what our mouths try to conceal. Pay attention to the whole person, not just their words. Imagine the cold tone of their voice. The sharp edge of their words. The way their eyes flicker away when you talk about something important. The tightness in their jaw. The subtle shift in their posture. These sensory details, often missed, are crucial clues. We live in a world where everyone's trying to project a perfect image. We're terrified of being seen as negative, so we plaster on fake smiles and pretend everything's great. Jung, with his love of paradox, would probably chuckle at this. He understood that darkness and light are two sides of the same coin. So, what do you do with this knowledge? How do you navigate these treacherous waters? That's where it gets really interesting. Because understanding these signs isn't about becoming paranoid and cutting everyone off. It's about something much more profound. Jung, despite his focus on the darker aspects of the psyche, was ultimately a proponent of individuation, the process of becoming whole. And that includes integrating our shadow, understanding our own capacity for hostility and resentment. True connection, Jung would argue, comes from authenticity. From acknowledging our flaws and accepting the flaws of others. It's about seeing the humanity in everyone, even those who might be secretly wishing us ill. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Jung understood the importance of forgiveness, both for others and for ourselves. We all have our shadow sides. We all make mistakes. Ultimately, this isn't about becoming a master detective, uncovering hidden conspiracies. It's about cultivating inner strength. About not being swayed by the opinions of others. About finding peace in silence, in the quiet contemplation of our own souls. Maybe, just maybe, the person who secretly hates you is, you. Your own shadow, projecting its insecurities and resentments onto the world. Now that's a Jungian thought to chew on. So, go forth, armed with this Jungian wisdom. Observe. Reflect. And remember, the greatest power lies not in controlling others, but in understanding yourself. And maybe, just maybe, in finding a little humor in the absurdity of it all. As Jung himself said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But in that pain, in that confrontation with the shadows, lies the potential for profound growth and transformation. And that journey, that descent into the often uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our relationships, is precisely where the gold lies, according to Jung. It's not about achieving some fluffy, Instagram-perfect state of bliss. It's about becoming real, warts and all. And sometimes, the first step towards that reality is acknowledging that not everyone around us is radiating pure, unadulterated love. Some might be dealing with their own inner demons, their own unacknowledged shadows, and unfortunately, that can sometimes spill over onto us. Think of the complex tapestry of the human psyche, a concept Jung explored in immense detail. We are not simple, one-dimensional beings. We are a swirling vortex of conscious thoughts, unconscious desires, archetypal patterns, and personal experiences. And within that vortex, the emotion of hatred, in its various subtle guises, can fester and grow, often undetected by the conscious mind. Jung's work on archetypes, those universal patterns of behavior and imagery that reside in the collective unconscious, can also shed light on this phenomenon. Consider the archetype of the shadow again. It represents the repressed aspects of our personality, the traits we deem unacceptable or undesirable. When we fail to acknowledge and integrate our own shadow, we are more likely to project it onto others. We might see our own hidden anger or resentment reflected in someone else's seemingly innocuous actions. Similarly, the archetype of the anima, in men, and animus, in women, representing the contrasexual aspects of our psyche, can play a role in our relationships. Unresolved issues with our inner feminine or masculine can lead to misunderstandings, projections, and even hostility in our interactions with others. We might be reacting not to the person in front of us, but to an unconscious image we hold within. Furthermore, Jung's concept of complexes, emotionally charged clusters of ideas and memories residing in the personal unconscious, can be triggered by our interactions with others. Someone's seemingly minor comment might tap into a deep-seated insecurity or past trauma, leading to an overblown reaction or a feeling of intense dislike that seems disproportionate to the situation. So, when we observe those subtle signs of potential animosity, it's not just about judging the other person. It's also an invitation for introspection. What within us might be attracting or interpreting these negative vibes? What unacknowledged aspects of our own shadow might be at play? Jung would encourage us to engage in a process of active imagination, a technique for accessing and working with the unconscious through imagery and dialogue. By consciously engaging with our inner world, we can begin to understand the roots of our own reactions and projections, and perhaps gain a clearer understanding of the dynamics at play in our relationships. Consider the feeling of being subtly undermined. It might trigger a complex related to past experiences of being belittled or ignored. Recognizing this internal trigger can help us to respond more consciously, rather than simply reacting with defensiveness or resentment. And what about the person exhibiting those signs? Jung's perspective offers a degree of empathy, even for those who might harbor negative feelings towards us. Their behavior might be a manifestation of their own unresolved inner conflicts, their own struggles with their shadow. It doesn't excuse their actions, but it offers a broader understanding of the human condition. The path towards healthier relationships, according to Jung, involves a greater degree of psychological differentiation, the process of becoming more fully ourselves, distinct from the expectations and projections of others. The more we understand our own inner landscape, the less we are swayed by external validation or negativity. We become more grounded in our own sense of self. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally detached or indifferent. On the contrary, true connection, in Jung's view, comes from a place of wholeness and authenticity. When we are more integrated, we are better equipped to navigate the complexities of human interaction, to offer genuine empathy, and to set healthy boundaries. Think about the energy drain you feel after interacting with someone who subtly puts you down. Jung would talk about psychic energy or libido, not just in a sexual sense, but as the life force that fuels our psychological processes. Negative interactions can deplete this energy, leaving us feeling drained and resentful. Recognizing the source of this drain is the first step towards protecting our psychic well-being. And the societal pressure to always be agreeable, to avoid conflict at all costs. Jung, the rebel psychologist, would likely scoff at such a notion. Authentic connection sometimes requires honest confrontation, albeit done with awareness and respect. Suppressing our true feelings to maintain a superficial harmony can lead to resentment and ultimately damage the relationship. So, how do we navigate these murky waters with a Jungian compass? Firstly, cultivate self-awareness. Pay attention to your own reactions, your gut feelings. What triggers you? What kind of energy do you feel around certain people? Secondly, engage in introspection. Explore your own shadow. What aspects of yourself do you try to hide or deny? Understanding our own darkness can help us to recognize it in others without judgment or projection. Thirdly, practice discernment. Not everyone who disagrees with you hates you. But learn to distinguish between constructive criticism and subtle undermining, between genuine concern and controlling behavior. Fourthly, set healthy boundaries. Protect your psychic energy. You are not obligated to be a sponge for everyone else's negativity. Fifthly, consider the possibility of projection. Are you seeing your own insecurities or resentments reflected in the other person's behavior? And finally, remember Jung's emphasis on the individuation process. Your primary journey is towards becoming your true self. While relationships are important, they should not come at the expense of your own psychological integrity. Perhaps the ultimate Jungian perspective on dealing with hidden animosity is to see it as an opportunity for growth, both for ourselves and potentially for the other person. Their negativity might be a distorted cry for help, a manifestation of their own inner turmoil. While we are not responsible for their feelings, our conscious and grounded response can sometimes shift the dynamic. Think of the alchemical process, a concept that deeply fascinated Jung. Alchemists sought to transform base metals into gold. Similarly, challenging relationships can be seen as crucibles for psychological transformation. By navigating these difficult interactions with awareness and integrity, we can emerge stronger and more whole. And as we move towards that wholeness, towards the integration of our own light and shadow, we might find that the need for external validation diminishes. We become less reliant on the approval of others, and therefore less vulnerable to their subtle negativity. The journey of individuation is not a solitary one, but it begins within. By understanding our own inner landscape, we become better equipped to navigate the complex terrain of human relationships, to recognize both genuine connection and hidden hostility, and ultimately, to cultivate a life grounded in self-awareness and authenticity. So, the next time you sense that subtle undercurrent of negativity, that veiled jab or dismissive glance, remember Jung. Remember the shadow, the complexes, the archetypes. And remember that the most powerful response often comes not from confrontation, but from a deeper understanding of yourself and the intricate, often hidden, dynamics of the human psyche. And perhaps, just perhaps, from a quiet, knowing smile.